gosh, there goes hurricanes here in Puckberg. Rangers, Bruins, Maple Leafs, it's a Puckberg. The goal of many is that cup of Stanley. Pucktales, woo! Pucktales, woo! Here in Puckberg.
Welcome, everyone, to the newest episode of Here in Puckberg. I am your host, Kyle Sullivan, a.k.a. Shaggy Von Doom, with another episode of Pucktales.
Woo!
And the you-know-who at the other end of the woohoo is none other than Jody Anderson, the author of Hockey Moms Aren't Crazy, well, maybe just a little. She wanted to come on and tell her story, and if you have picked up the book, know of her story, you know this story is perfect for Here in Puckberg. So, Jody, we are honored to have you.
Well, I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
And I love the title of the book, the imagery of the book. I have spoken to, ironically enough, this week in my day job, I have spoken to another hockey mom, and we talked about the life in general of a hockey parent. So let's start at the beginning of your story. Why hockey?
Well, it started when our youngest son came home from his second grade class with a little blue piece of paper in his hand going, I want to play hockey. It's free. It's free. I want to play hockey. And I thought, okay, I don't think it's free, but we'll check into it. But where we were living at the time, the first year that you play hockey was free. Your ice time, they donated, got clothes donated, sticks, everything. Needless to say, that is all it took. He was hooked from day one. As a matter of fact, he is an assistant varsity coach for our local high school team right now.
Wow. What area of the world was that located?
In Minnesota.
Ah, the state of hockey, they say.
Yes.
Wow, that's fascinating. And you know, I have two children myself. But keeping my eye on learn to plays and these like introductory programs that get you into the game. And I love hearing the stories that it's one of those they fell in love from day one.
Mhm.
Like, what do you know what about that experience stood out to secure that love?
Well, Jeremy's very competitive, and I think, and very high energy. I thank God he found hockey because one of us would have ended up in jail. It's just that simple. When he would skate, all that energy would wear off, and he loved it. And that's what I think was the big draw. Let alone making the friends that he made from second grade on. Those guys were in his wedding. I mean, they're buddies today.
And see, and now we'll speak parent to parent here. It's great when you find that moment that your child like falls in love with it.
Mhm.
Like it's fascinating. Like you're excited for them, but then the reality of like you as a human, you're like, oh, this is about to be my life.
Mhm.
How did you navigate that?
Well, we have 4 children, and our oldest was in lacrosse. Our next daughter was a diver, and Jeremy was hockey, and the daughter after him was hockey. So we had extended family that had to help us quite a bit with tournaments, things that we could not be at. We felt it very important that a family member always be there. My logic as a mom is, what if they get hurt? I mean, they got to have mom there. I mean, that was my whole logic for that. But we had a lot of outside help. When we had kids running everywhere, we'd go, okay, Grandma, where do you want to go? Canada or, Southern Minnesota, or what do you want us to do? So we were blessed with a lot of help.
And let's see, what about like like the ballpark? What age range was this when he?
So there is 17 years difference between my oldest and my youngest. The middle two are 2.5 years apart. The last two are 7 years apart. So those guys were a little more closer. So it wasn't like they were back to back to back, you know. But what we did run into is when the diving and the hockey ran together, we'd have to look at the calendar and go, okay, are we going to go to the hot swim pool? Or are we heading to the arena? How are we dressing here?
How does the water look today?
What does the water look like today? And of course, my daughter would be teased by the arena managers saying, "No, you can't dive here. This is hard water." So they kind of give her a hard time. So it's great.
And what about how did you feel about the hockey mom life at the beginning? Was that something that you also kind of settled into? Was it a frantic thing? Were you also learning on the go? What was your experience with the game of hockey at that point?
I loved every minute of it. I'm a high energy person too. So of course my whole thing is how can I help? What can I do to help you? So I got involved in fundraisers, I got involved in all those kinds of things. And of course I ended up being president of the Blue Liners Club for 2 years, president of the Red Liners Club for 2 years, helped run tournaments. I was that kind of mom. I was very involved and I loved every minute of it. But I think a lot of that comes from my background. I grew up on a 100-acre quarter horse farm, and we
Mm,
had 42 head of horses, and there was no slack in there. I'm telling you what. So
yeah,
in the back of my book, I think I said something about I think being raised on a quarter horse farm prepared me for the life of being a hockey mom. Just as much traveling, just as expensive, and just as time consuming. So I think it fit really well for me.
yeah. And that was going to be my next question. Like, how much of the knowledge of the life that you were about to jump into did you know beforehand? Because like if you're listening to the show, you have some passing knowledge of the game of hockey. You know it's not a cheap sport, and you know you're going to be traveling around to pretty remote places to play this sport. It's not the most easily accessible game on the planet. I mean, let's just be real here. Did you know any of that going into the game?
Well, again, with the traveling with the quarter horses, it was kind of the same thing with
True.
traveling with the hockey families. It was, now it's so easy. You plug it into your GPS and you know where you're going.
That's very true. That's very true. Yeah, we kind of get spoiled on that.
Yeah,
You don't have to plot it out with the Rand McNally atlas anymore.
exactly.
And so, how many years do you say you were a hockey mom in total? Are you still affiliated with the game other than the book?
Grandkids that play, my son coaches. So I go there to support them. Um, I'm not a hockey mom anymore, but hockey grandma, I suppose.
Did with that passion that you were talking about with the game with your children, did that start spilling over into now we're attending every pro game we could get a hold of? Is it now on our television every chance we get? Are we taking in the game in every form or facet? Or was every time the rink was open, we're at the rink?
Yeah, every time the rink was open, they were there. My son actually still plays on a men's league, looking for ice. It's in our blood. It just is, and it's will be forever. I think.
Yeah, and that's because that's something I see, and I think honestly, this is the narrative in all sports, nowadays, especially that it could get a little too much, and you see a lot of
Mhm.
you like what we experienced was you go to the rink when it's open, and that's where you got your outlet, and then you resume regular life. And now with everything being so social media, internet connected, you could easily do hockey from the second you wake up to the second you fall asleep. You could do it in some form or facet, and they have the at-home versions of where you can do stick handling drills at home, and it's more accessible. I can see the pros and cons, but it could easily take over your life. Did you have an easy time managing like the life and hockey balance?
You know, this is something I pretty much left up to my athletes. It's up to you how much you want to practice. I'm not going to push you.
Yeah.
Somebody out there is going to do it better. And if you want to be better, then you better get out there and do it. So I never got wrapped up in that whole thing. It was totally their decision on how much they were going to practice. But once they committed to a team, did I make sure they got to practices? Oh yeah, that's a commitment. Did I
Yeah.
make sure they went to the games? Yep, that's a commitment. But as far as shooting 100 pucks out at the net, that's your call, buddy.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And it's one of those every time I could get the ear of someone who experiences that experience that on a day-to-day basis, I'm always fascinated to see what that approach was because you've walked away with this experience like positive enough to write a book. What came into the process of wanting to write this book and the stories that are in this book?
Oh, I didn't want to write it. I work for a publisher.
Ah.
And I would come home from tournaments like all hockey moms. How's your weekend? Da 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 da. And all the stories would spill out about what happened at the hockey tournament. Owner of the company comes out of his office and says, "Okay, I've heard enough. You need to write a book." And I looked at him and said, "Nope, I'm not doing it. I like my job. I don't know if it's going to sell. I know what it takes to market it. I know what it takes to sell it. I don't want to disappoint you. So I'm just turning, no, I don't want to do it." So the next day I come out, and there's a contract on my desk. I come back to work and there's a contract on my desk, and my boss peeks around the corner and goes, "Did you see what's on your desk?" I said, "Yes, sir, I did." And he said, "Sign it or you're fired." I went, "Excuse me, what?" He said, "I'm kidding." But he said, "I went home and did research. There is nothing on the market like what you're telling me.
Mm.
So he said, "Let's just try it." I said, "All right." 6 months later, the book was produced. So what it started out to be was just jokes, just funny things about hockey moms. But I got to thinking I wanted the book to have a little more meat to it. So I got online and I wanted nice stories about mom, how important hockey moms are to getting the kids to practice, to getting them their food, to all of that. So I thought I want to start bending some guys' ears. So I ended up with the Minnesota Wild, and I got invited into their NHL room and got some interviews from the players there. And then one night, this is my favorite story. I'm on Twitter, and Mike Eruzioni's on there. And I'm like, okay, I've had a glass of wine. I've got guts now. So I tweet Eruzioni, and I said, "Hey, Mike, I'm doing a story about hockey moms. I would love a story about your mom." 10 seconds later, he writes back, "I love this idea. Contact me at BU," and gives me the number. I'm like looking at my phone going, "Say what?" I'm like, "Okay, I can do this." So the next day I get up, and of course I contact him right away, and it goes into voicemail. And a couple, 3 days go by, and I never again pushed anybody to really be in it. You either want to or you don't. So I'm in my Jeep and I'm driving to my eye doctor appointment, and the phone rings. I didn't recognize the number. I thought, well, I'm just gonna let it go to voicemail. And it's ringing and it's ringing and I, oh, for crying out loud. I pick it up on the Jeep and I said, "Hello, this is Jody. How can I help you?" Just kind of in a pissy mood, you know. And the other end goes, "Jody, Mike Eruzioni here. Boy, you want to talk instant personality change?" Holy cow. I just went, "Oh my gosh, Mike, how are you?" And he goes, "Let's do this. I'm ready." And I said, "Oh my gosh, Mike, I'm driving to my doctor's appointment. I don't have any questions. I've got nothing for you right now. I'm so, so sorry." And he goes, "No, that's okay. I'm going to the airport." And he goes, "What's my timeline?" I said, "We got 3 months before we go to print." And he said, "Okay, here's my cell phone number." And he said, "Don't forget I called you because I want to do this." And I'm thinking in the back of my head, yeah, I'm going to blow Mike Eruzio.
Yeah.
I'm going to totally forget that he called me. So I got the interview, and it's 6 pages in the book, and it's so good. It's just so good.
Do you think that had something to do? Did hearing that from your boss that there's really nothing in the medium about like the stories of hockey moms, did that kind of change how you approach? Because you mentioned like the beginning of the book was kind of jokey and
Right.
you filled it in with jokes. Did you start writing this a little bit for yourself and wishing you had something that you also had during your journey as a hockey mom to rely on? Because once you heard like the responses that you were getting on, "Hey, this is something that I would love to contribute to," do
Yeah.
you not feel like this was more of taking care of a need that was out there that you also experienced?
I don't think so. Um, I really don't. I wanted to. I want the book to thank hockey moms, to realize that they're
Ah,
appreciated, to realize that they're not all those screaming, bang on the glass, yelling at the ref, getting tossed out of the game. Hockey moms. That's not who we are. So I wanted those moms to know, hey, we appreciate you, and this is what Mike Eruzioni is saying. This is what Michael Russo is saying. This is what Natalie Darwitz is saying. So that's what I wanted, more for them.
yeah, more okay, I completely see that side because like I'm putting myself as you're telling that story, I'm putting myself in your shoes and like it's definitely something that needs to be told because when you hear like even like when you see the title, you automatically are like, yeah, okay, I get where this is
Yeah,
going. Like because it's the stereotype that you get with hockey moms and you're
exactly.
just like, okay, I get it. There's I love every bit of that. And to have such reverence and like as a thank you to the hockey moms, like we understand, and like this is our story to help everyone else understand what you go through. I love that. I love that so much. And you talked about the responses. How easy was it to put all that down into from to pen and paper and to collect those stories?
It just flowed. It was so easy. Like I said, from the time it was 6 months, the book was done. I mean, it was just that quick, and that's usually not the case
Yeah.
with most books. And now the second edition is coming out in October, so I'm really excited about that. Got new stories and but yeah, it just flows. I mean, I for the second edition, I did the same kind of thing. Went on Twitter, LinkedIn, asked for stories, and um, sometimes we correct punctuation or things like that. But people are just willing to give, and they're willing to tell their story as a hockey mom or how important that hockey mom was to them.
And you mentioned we're about to roll into the second edition in October. What was the reaction to the first edition
Oh my gosh.
and everyone in that the hockey mom and the hockey parent world? How did that land? What was that after you released the book? What was that like?
It was nuts because the Minnesota Wild called and wanted to do my book launch.
Wow.
So they opened up a suite, didn't charge me a dime for the suite, but brought in a cash bar. I really don't know. I can't remember how many books we sold that night, but I was swamped the whole night. Then that night I got to say, let's play hockey on the big national Megatron thingamabobber there. And that was quite exciting. And after that, a week after that, the Minnesota Wild contacted me and said, hey, the NHL wants to talk to you. And I got nervous at first because the first thing, because you work for a publisher, I'm thinking, did I overstep my boundaries? Did I plagiarize something that I didn't know I did? What did I do that they don't like? Oh man, I am in real trouble here. And I'm kind of thinking out loud. And Matt goes, no, they want to interview you. They think this is great. And I went, oh, okay. So long story short there, I was actually interviewed by them 3 different times. And they picked the book as a #1 Christmas gift in 2013 when the first edition came out.
That's incredible.
It was just crazy.
And and to think that you wanted nothing to do with it, and to see it being like that reaction, that had to be insane. And kudos to Minnesota.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
probably the first time I would ever say that, being with my affiliation of fandom. But kudos to Minnesota. That's awesome that they wrapped you up and embraced this title. What's going into the second edition? What is this a culmination of? What can we expect with the second edition?
The second edition is more stories. It's more pages and more illustrations. And you're actually the first one that I'm telling this to. That's in the book. I kind of kept it a secret on Twitter and said I wasn't going to announce who the. So Michael Ruzioni was my big star in the first book, and he is in the second one too. We did not cut that story. With this second edition, I got Michael Russo to write a story about his mother.
Wow.
It is absolutely incredible.
My goodness. And absolutely, when this episode drops, I would love everyone who listens to be picking up a copy. I will be picking up a copy as well. Like I'm so excited. And wow, that's incredible. I'm not going to ask you to reveal anything that's in the second edition because I'm extremely excited for that. But so you said you're now a hockey grandmother and you're just kind of going to support. And you said you're still part of the Blue Liners Club?
No, they would like me to jump back on, but they need the young bloods in there to bring it up to their speed, not mine.
Is there any aspect of that life that you miss?
Oh, for sure. And it's not just hockey. I mean, my daughter was a diver too, so I missed watching them compete. I just enjoyed watching them have fun.
Yeah, that sense of that community along with that, and watching your child in their element, like the
Yeah.
thing that they're building and they're working and refining, and watching all that. And like now you said he's a varsity coach. Your son's a varsity coach. Like that, just to watch it all the way to that moment, that has to be so exhilarating.
Oh, it's just fun to go and see him behind the bench. you know, and he's a very active coach. I mean, he's pacing back and forth on that bench, and he's down and talking to those kids, and they just eat it up, you know. And he also does all the drills with them and shoots at the net when he misses or does push-ups when he misses the net. I mean, he's one of those hands-on guys.
And honestly, you could think of it, if you taking a part in that hockey mom life allowed him to follow his dream, and now he's in the coaching position, giving he's the coach that a bunch of the new school of hockey moms are talking about. So it's awesome to watch that just continually grow and cultivate. And I love that. I love that so much. I'm super excited to see where the second edition comes out. And also, before we get ready to close everything up, how can everybody get this book? I know I was doing some research earlier when we talked, and I have found some locations. What is your preferred way of getting the book?
Oh, there's no preferred way for me. If you want to pre-order the book to just make sure you get it and you don't have to worry about running out to finding it, Amazon has it right now, and you can pre-order it, and they'll ship it when it comes out in October. After that, it will be in all book and gift stores, so you should be able to pick it up there. If you can't find it there, ask them for it, and they'll get it in for you.
That's fantastic. And how would people go about finding you on Twitter?
Oh gosh, what am I on Twitter? I don't even know. I'd have to get
You know
my
what?
phone and look. Do you have it?
You know what? I think I might. You know what? It is.
Hockey Mom Jody or something like that.
Yes, it is HockeyMom_Jody. It'll also be tagged in the social media for this post when the episode drops. So definitely give this a follow. And I implore everyone to definitely give this book like a look, a read, and share, because after glancing at what I did with the first edition, this is gold. This is absolute gold, and you did a fantastic job. This is not just like a little like nudge. Like, you did a really, really good job, and there's a reason why it was received the way it is.
Oh, thank you so much.
And I truly mean that. And I would like to thank you most of all for coming on and sharing this story. And I also, if this is your first time jumping on the show, you can find us on Twitter at HPuckberg on Twitter, here_in_Puckberg on Instagram. You can follow us on YouTube, which is where we are right now, and you can see the lovely display behind Jody. But we'll wrap it up for now. And Jody, again, thank you so much for coming on, and best of luck in the future.
Thank you.
And thank you for making me say good things about the wild. I've never done that before. So thank you for that. And best of luck with the book in the second edition. I am fully supporting everything you're doing, and you're doing great work.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was lots of fun. I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And we will see everyone again here in Puckberg real soon.